Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting, Committee of the Whole. As is the custom with the Cochrane Town Council, the chair of COW is rotated through the deputy chair, deputy mayor's job, and so it's my turn. I just wanted to recognize and thank those that have gone before me and set the bar high, and I hope I can do as good a job with that. Having said that, in introductory remarks, I'll call the meeting to order, noting the time, and I did bang the gavel. As per my notes. I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
See how that feels?
Marnie, did you want to adopt the agenda?
I will adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move then to the adoption of the previous minutes of February 21st. I look for a motion on that.
I'd like to move to adopt the minutes of the last Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. All in favor? That's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you. And there are no delegations tonight. We'll move then to business. So we have a development summary report from Mr. Norquist.
All right, good evening, Council. I'm here to present the annual development summary report. So this report is a retrospective over the past year, just showing how Cochrane has grown, as well as the changes to our dwelling counts, our land supply, and overall population. So, in brief overview, 540 new units have been built. This is slightly down from last year, but still above average. And approximately 637 new lots have been subdivided, again, to keep up with the pace of new construction. We are estimating the population growth is around 1,400 residents, or about a 4.4% growth rate. As far as permit activity, we received and processed 175 development permits last year, 55 of which were specifically for non-residential development. So when we talk about our land use and our land supply, we're looking at the balance of dwelling units with our land use. So we approximately have around 9,500 dwellings available, 1,000 which have subdivision approval, and another 8,400 is still waiting for land use, or only have land use only, sorry. So we're looking at the 482 homes built in our 10 main neighborhoods, which are currently actively growing, as well as the dwellings without land use, which is approximately 1,300 and is only in 2 specific areas now. So when we do our calculations, we look at the average growth rate. So our average build rate is still 583 units per year. However, when we exclude 2014 and 2015, that drops down to around 500. So when we estimate we use these numbers to estimate the total dwellings with land use, as well as how many years of land supply. So right now, when we use the higher rate, we have 16.3 years and 19 years at the lower rate. And then when we add in those areas without land use, we're looking at about another 2 to 2.5 years of land supply, giving Cochrane roughly 18.5 to 21.5 years of land supply. So we break this down into 3 scenarios. So our immediate term is dwellings with subdivision not yet built, so that's that first number. Where on average we do keep between 1 to 2 years of land supply. Then we move to the dwellings with land use, which represents that 9,500 potential units. When we factor that into our current population, that puts our projection to around 58,000. And the final scenario is when we include all land, so with or without land use that currently has an area structure plan or a neighborhood plan in place, which then bumps up the projection to 61,600. We do also compare this to our water license. So we use the assumption of 40,000 dwelling units, which was set out in the gross management strategy. There has been work to, again, increase this number, but for this report, we're still working with that basic assumption. We are using the estimated population of 33,453 residents, and it breaks down to approximately another 6,500 residents or 2,500 dwellings that we can accommodate before we reach that water license. Which, again, going back to those build rates, is between 4 and 5 years of supply, which is about roughly split between 1,000 subdivided lots and another 1,500 lots that we would yet to see subdivided in future years. So, just going over everything again. So our annual build rate is still between 500 and 580 dwellings per year, which gives us between 16 and 19 years of land supply, as well as 2 to 3 years of land supply that has not received land use yet, for a total land supply of 19 to 22 years. Currently, we have subdivisions for the next 1 to 2 years, and with a total estimated population of 61,618 within those areas. And then using the assumption of our water availability of 40,000, we can accommodate another 2,500 dwellings, which is approximately 4 to 5 years of land supply. That is my presentation for tonight, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about the report.
Thank you, Mr. Norquist. Council, any questions? Now this is awkward. Councilor Federico.
Thanks for the excellent report. Are you anticipating that growth is going to slow down in this upcoming year?
I'm not really the person to answer that. This report is mainly looking at what happened last year and how that fits in with our current trends. As you know, we are currently undergoing a review of the gross management strategy, which would again update these projections to give us a better idea how we can grow in the future.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Councilor Federico, we're anticipating to be consistent with previous years. However, some economic indicators are indicating we may slow down a bit, but Cochrane, as you can see through the historic numbers, has been fairly resilient and consistent in terms of the numbers historically.
Okay, Councilor Nagel.
I do not have a question. I just want to thank you for the presentation and say that I'm glad we're keeping track of this and giving a public presentation about it. There was a time before almost everybody here was on council that these numbers weren't being tracked. And I think it's really good that we're keeping this tracked within the organization and then just having a public conversation about it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Flowers.
The number 66,000, was that as if we fill up everything that we can fill?
Sorry, through the chair, the total population of 61,000, that is all land that currently has land use and all land that is under an area structure plan or a neighborhood plan that does not have land use. So that's basically everything that council has approved to date.
And the estimated timeframes that it would be full?
That would be the long-term range of approximately 18.5 to 21.5 years before we get to that number.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Flowers, if I can just provide some additional information. You did see the growth study. Mr. Popoff and his team came before, and there was a couple of different scenarios from around 66,000 all the way up to 86,000 over the 25-year period. So this is a snapshot of that given our current numbers. But again, this is where I wanted to ensure that council had all of this information as we go into strategic planning later this week.
Council, any other questions? Mr. Norquist, I had a couple of my own. First of all, I want to echo what Councillor Nagel had said. This is a timely report for us as a community and both as a council. My question had to do with the chart on the last page, I think, of your report. So when you talked about development activity, and I noticed in the PowerPoint presentation you didn't reference that, but I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
So through the chair, which chart were you
It's
specifically?
under
Maybe I'll just address them all as a group because
That's the
it
one.
does kind of answer the question of development activity. There are 3 charts at the end of the report looking at basically 2 metrics. The first is the one I have up here, which is a breakdown of all of our development permits. So I have broken them down into the groups that of interest and comparing it to the last 2 years. As well as I have broken them down as residential versus commercial and industrial. Again, to give an idea of kind of what that residential, non-residential split is and has been for the past couple of years. And the last chart deals with compliance requests. Again, these are requests that we have from homeowners to review their real property reports to ensure that they're compliant with the town's bylaws. This is something we usually see during a real estate transaction. So I like to include it as kind of an indicator of what's happening or close to the number of sales or transactions that are happening in the market, at least from the town's view.
If I could just proceed a little further then, so when we talk about 540 new units, does that include multi-unit dwellings or is that just a pure residential single-family home?
That includes all types of units, so that would be single-family, accessory suites, and multi-unit residential.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't see any other further questions from council. Again, just thank you for a great report. This is the kind of a level and detail report council's become accustomed to. And so we just want to recognize publicly the great job that you did and the timeliness of it. So thank you. Now move on to the fire services project plan update. And Chief, welcome to council. Thanks for getting here early and avoiding the accidents.
It's an interesting afternoon, this Collision City today. Oh. Thank you, Jaylene. Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to share a progress update. So administration is pleased to provide a strategic update to the Committee of the Whole on the project plan, progress to date in the creation of our fire services plan. Bit of a backup, you may refer to it as the Fire Master Plan. We've updated our terminology because we were looking for something that had a little bit better feel and flavor for our community in the way that we're also studying a number of other reports. So we've updated the name to Fire Services Plan. At the completion of this work, it is intended to assist with the development of a long-range planning document in support of the Cochrane Strategic Plan and community vision through both organizational and operational analysis of Cochrane Fire Services and through our existing and future service deliveries. As you may know, we had this project approved a couple of years ago, and we actually put it on hold knowing that we had the growth management study and we were starting to work with the municipal development plan. So we're happy to be in the right type of framework and timeline to be able to provide a good strategic update on this actual project. When we sent out a request for proposal, we awarded to Transitional Solutions, Inc., TSI, and they're an Alberta-based company based out of Sherwood Park. And they've established themselves as a leader in municipal fire management and planning. This group brings not just retired fire chiefs from around the province or around Western Canada, but also brings analysts MBAs, health and safety experts, to really have a good look at our organization. At the kickoff meeting in December, through administration and TSI, we set the following 4 guiding principles for us as they started to do the final draft of the report. And what we decided to land on was these 4 key words, and I'm going to explain them a little bit further in some slides. We decided that we were looking for a report that was innovative, it was palatable, it was manageable, and defensible. Our plan is anticipated to assist in the determination of satisfactory service delivery, review current and anticipated risks, and create key performance indicators based upon applicable legislation, industry best practice, and council-defined service levels. Innovation. It was important for me to share why we chose these words. So this is our guiding principle. Innovation means to us is building a plan that is best suited to work for our community and for our administration. The finalized report will provide sustainable and practical recommendations for the town and to meet with an updated 10-year fire services plan. So we have a way forward. Our next guiding principle is palatable. We chose the word palatable as a guiding principle because we wanted the plan to showcase that our community is growing, and we need to align to several other important documents, such as achieving council's strategic plan. Recommendations that have been made will be based on our local conditions, balanced with some industry best practice, provincial safety initiatives, and the National Fire Protection Association standards and guidelines and recommendations. Fire services will be looking for a working plan that will deliver to our team and our community that supports consistent growth into our future. Manageable. Deliver a manageable process that is underpinned by engagement. TSI has been working through the past 2 months gathering information, asking questions, understand who we are as a fire service, understanding our community, and analyzing our organizational alignment and needs. We looked at a 10-year horizon in this plan. We thought that that was a good balance to understand what our growing community looks like. We've defined our terms as immediate term, 6 to 12 months after the adoption and review and council's had a chance to look at it. Short term, throughout the rest of the year 2023, medium term, 3 to 5 years, and long term being 6 to 10 to complete our cycle. Our final guiding principle is defensible. During observations through a shared understanding of the information collected, discussed, and presented, we will have clear, achievable recommendations that can be made to support the decision makers in how we've achieved those and that they are defensible. It's important for us to bring you a plan and a report that is digestible and is defensible against a series of criterion that allows us to achieve good movements as we move forward, but also not so far out in advance that we aren't able to deliver on those key principles. Our primary goals will be to analyze the structure, the operations, and our response. The primary goals of the project are to analyze the department's structure, operations, and response, and determine recommendations for improved efficiency reflective of the expected growth in the community over the next 10 years. TSI has been mandated to deliver on the following primary goals: an assessment and analysis of current and forecasted fire protection, prevention, public education service delivery needs, and develop a clear and concise recommendation supported by a 10-year implementation strategy for council and staff. The plan shall be expressed in terms of clear and concise goals, objectives, action steps, resources, human and financial, and the timelines required to successfully complete the priorities detailed in our plan. The plan will identify and consider strategies aimed at planning for and responding to current and future growth within the town over the next 10 years. These plans will identify key areas and corridors where residential commercial intensification is planned for and is projected. And finally, item 4 is assessing staffing needs by evaluating the impacts of existing and future growth patterns and the projected community needs. Circumstances as they arrive to all to all areas of the fire protection services and reviewing capabilities of existing staff and identifying current and future needs. As we move into engagement, what TSI has been undertaking is a comprehensive process. That's what they were told to do and asked to do. And they are most certainly the program and the department and the group of folks that are doing a great job at asking the questions. We started our process in January, and today with, they started in January with our fire services staff, which included a fire services plan project update, workshops, SurveyMonkey, open opportunities to meet with the consultants and have their questions, all staff questions answered, and provide thorough engagement. Engagement for us meant open dialogue, transparent, protected information, confidentiality were all corner-pinned important items for us to look at. Part of the arrangement we made with TSI is that they keep and maintain all raw data. They do not provide any information to us other than key themes reported by staff and their observations. The TSI has also been looking and digging deep into our programs. We've created a Microsoft Teams process where they can actually access any information that we've stockpiled and have available for recall at any time. They have access to all of our learning management system software, as well as our scheduling program, as well as our standards and our procedures and our policies, not only for fire services, but anything they need in a supporting way from the town's processes. We felt that through a holistic and encompassing perspective, TSI has been achieving success in opening dialogue and ensuring all voices are heard, and confidentiality is critical. As we move ahead, we will be engaging with using the Let's Talk Cochrane opportunity. We're currently working on our community consultation questionnaire, and we will be working with Kristen's team and communications at finalizing the questions. We're looking forward to getting out to speak with our citizens of town and hear what they have to say about our service. And so there's more to follow and more work to do with the engagement process. In your package, you'll find that we have this slide is actually in your package. I blew it up just to certainly show where we are currently located in our process. With the green arrows is approximately where we're currently landing. We also have a Gantt chart in the back of your council package to demonstrate where we are. That update was rather recent, so we have moved some timelines around to allow for future engagement opportunities. So next is actually starting today. The TSI group was meeting with the CAO, ELT, SLT, and the managers group through leadership here at the Ranch House. And of course, we have council interviews to be confirmed and finalized based on availability around March 16th and 17th. So I know that you're graciously filling up those time slots for us. So thank you very much for doing that. We are planning on engaging with our community at the end of March through mid-April. That timeline is soft right now. If we're receiving a lot of feedback, we'll certainly open that opportunity up a little bit further because we certainly need to hear from our community. From mid-March to the end of June, that's where TSI will be going back and they'll be pulling together their draft reports and ready for review. So what is the report going to look like? Well, the report is 14, these are the 14 tabs that will be included in the final report and will identify all of the sectors that we identified in the request for proposal. This document is critical, really critical for our service, and we're looking forward to investing our time and energy, and the staff are certainly helping bring together significant effort and bring their voice to the table. So we're very happy to hear about that. I can expand on all the 14 items if council wishes, but certainly at this point, that is my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Polly. Councillor Wilson? You're up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the report, Chief Foley. I had a question about, I guess it was item 14 on there, the financial part of the eventual report. I don't know if it's an administration question more or to yourself, but this council spent a lot of time thinking about growth paying for itself in the future, and when we bring on new growth, how we calculate how that growth will affect each department. And so fire services is in front of us right now. Do you think the report would help us understand how to better tax either through offsite levy or other mechanisms for new growth coming into the community? Will this report help with the financial lens?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, yes, indeed, they have CGA, CPA type person who's actually looking into the financials. TSI has engaged directly with our community financial end and business unit and are digging through the books to make sure that they understand what the true challenges are of looking at are we saving enough money? Are we putting enough money away for fire services equipment? Are we identifying alternative means of funding? Are we maximizing on grant opportunities? So they'll look at our history and how we've performed and provide some recommendations for us through the financial portion of that. This was actually a value add piece. It was not included in the request for proposal, that it was a piece that TSI identified as something critical for that we were missing in our end result. So we're certainly looking forward to what they have to offer in this thorough review.
Wonderful, look forward to it. Thank you. Is this fire master plan, have we done this before, or is this a new document for the town of Cochrane?
We've commissioned consultants to complete these reports, and the last one was in 2015. It was presented to council.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Councillor Federico?
Thank you for the information. I have a comment and a question. First of all, my comment is I'm excited to see TSI taking the lead for this project, and a big thank you for allowing us as council members to have one-on-one interviews and be able to share some of our own thoughts about it and having them confidential so that our opinions are also not swayed sometimes by our colleagues sitting around the table. So I do appreciate that from this company. And my question is, generally in the past, a lot of times council has received the fire services master plan or the new fire services plan now, but usually it's just accepted for information. Are you hoping that this is actually going to be adopted with some teeth in it and we're actually going to approve it?
That is my, through the chair to Councillor Federico, yes, indeed. We, as our core values, where we are guiding principles, that was important for us to make sure that council was well informed of the report. That's why I'm very grateful to be able to be here to present it to you as this intermediate step along the way. But yes, our plan is that we are, fire services are certainly looking forward to council's review, adoption, or direction to administration to take forward recommendations that will be made. It's part of our guiding principles of why we were looking for innovative, palatable, manageable, and defensible plan for your use as well.
Perfect. I mean, it's something that I've probably been asking for probably I think the last 5 years anyways, is that we need to get on this, right? Because as we grow, it's going to be very timely. We've got to start getting a push on it because obviously that financial implication from whether or not it's requiring a second hub, second hall, more firefighters, it's all going to come at a cost. So
Yes.
it's good to be prepared for it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flowers?
Thank you for the update. Sounds like it's going to be a very thorough report. My question is, have other communities used similar questions? Will we be able to compare the data when we get it?
Certainly, through Councillor Flowers, through the chair, yes, we are. We use the council approved community comparators list. TSI is currently looking through the list and finding the best route to find agencies and communities that best align with us and what our growth is and how we've been building our community. So they certainly are looking at that. I think what will be in the final report will be probably quite interesting to see what they've come up with based on either as tax rates or staffing or equipment or some very key things. Financial outcome might be also a big part of what they're going to bring forward to us, but certainly we're looking forward to how we stack up against others, but being mindful that our community is ours, and that's the innovation side is another key part of what they're supposed to do is We didn't want a plan that was just a cookie cutter. We wanted something that was really looked at. From the information they keep asking for, they are digging deeply into our roots of how we conduct our business, and it is very welcome in this service.
Good news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Tara?
Thank you. Yeah, Andy, thank you very much for the report. As Councillor Federico had mentioned, I think we've been looking forward to this sort of a plan in detail and go forward for a while, so it's great to be at this point. My first thought in seeing your report is, what does palatable mean? And I'm still kind of uncomfortable with that. It's not quite visionary and bold enough for me, especially paired with innovative. And as I understand it, the financial piece is buried as part of that.
Yes.
So I would have preferred something identifying, financial accountability or sustainability or something to play to the financial piece, but I understand it's part of the report. What I do like about this as part of the deliverables is that we're going to get a good understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, of our service level goals and impacts, and then also the related, financial level goals and impacts that are going to go through that. So I'm understanding that's correct.
Yes.
But as part of the presentation, any process is usually, step by step. Is that going to be part of the deliverable? Is kind of an evolutionary path forward, or is it going to be a giant step to the moon?
Well, that's why we're in front of council today, is to certainly help share that story and where we are, and give some comfort that we are moving ahead in a very engaged or consultative fashion. And the final report will have those short, immediate, and long-term goals. So similar to some other community master plans or fire services plans, they do identify so that it is not in year one, you must do this, but it provides us options to be able to build a service to keep pace with the growth management study, or perhaps even the municipal development plan. So I think that there are certainly key ties, and I feel very comfortable and fortunate that we're actually in this space right now with this consulting group to ensure that they are receiving all of the information. Even today's council report from my colleague was sent off to the project manager to make sure that they are aware that there are information packages coming forward on every Monday for council in their review, and make sure they're staying current with what's actually happening on our landscape.
Okay, yeah, no, that's excellent news. And just some clarity, I think, around Councillor Wilson's question around growth paying for growth. And Councillor Wilson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what your question was is this also going to identify, what the offsite, when we say growth pays for growth, it's usually what does the offsite levy, contribute to that?
Yes.
And so different fire infrastructure is part of the offsite levy bylaw, is it? I just wanted some clarity on that for myself.
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, yes, I believe there is more bricks and mortar. I would have to ensure that
I can support Chief Polly, if I may, Mr. Chair. So the legislation allows for fire services, bricks and mortar structures to be covered through offsite levies, but not operational or apparatus cost at this point. And certainly this report, as has been outlined, will identify both a need and then some financial implications, which will be very helpful in developing that process to add into our offsite levy bylaw, should it be the will of council. It is not currently a part of our existing offsite bylaw structure.
Okay, so that it could, once we get this report, we can look at it and make some recommendations, but it could include, future, a new station or satellite solutions or whatever innovative solutions you come up with.
Innovation, yes.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilor McFadden. Mayor Janung.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your report tonight. Very detailed. All of my questions were answered except one. I'd just like to drill down on the innovation side. And I think we just kind of touched on it there briefly, but as part of the study you're going to be looking at, and I don't have any particular idea in mind, but at alternatives to delivering the service, if there may be innovations in that, is that correct?
Yes, certainly, through the chair to the mayor. Yes, indeed, TSI is well-versed at looking at community solutions, not only in Alberta, but across Canada. So we're looking forward to seeing what's out there. We want to make sure we're holistic in our approach, hand talker, sorry about that.
Happens
Certainly
to-
want to make sure we're looking perhaps outside our jurisdiction as well, just to see what's going on in Canada. The focus for our TSI was to look regionally within Western Canada, but they are a national company and have working groups across Canada. So we're looking forward to seeing what given our circumstances, what are potential options for us as well.
I think if I may just add to that as well, I benefited from having my interview today, as Chief Polly mentioned, and one of the conversations was it's the full cycle of the fire services, which includes not just response, but also preventative. What can we do across this entire spectrum of providing that service to our community, and not just necessarily focusing on response, but looking at that broad spectrum of tools that exist there to provide the best overall outcomes. So I'm hopeful and confident that that will yield a number of opportunities for us to consider how we might deliver this important service to our community going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Really happy to hear that. My last question was, I think, answered throughout your presentation, but you're happy with the way it's going so far?
Certainly,
Yeah.
Yep. We're very, very happy with the leveling up of this organization. They are a fantastic group to work for, and certainly I try not to fly them, toot their horn too much, but they are a very professional organization and are bringing a great deal of innovative, already just, not solutions, but just ideas on what they're actually looking for. So we're very, very pleased with the work they've been doing for us.
And maybe just one last one, if I may, Mr. Chair. And I think I know the answer to this too, but at the outcome of it's driven by questions and our own community and our own fire services personnel and council, et cetera, as you've outlined, but the report will be from a third party giving advice from their perspective on what it is that we need to deliver X, Y, and Z, correct?
Through the chair to the mayor, yes, we will be working, the first drafts will be due to leadership here first, and with Executive Director Lowe to review with myself and the Deputy Fire Chief. We'll look at their recommendations, look at if there's some retooling that they need, if they perhaps weren't deep enough or perhaps need to go back. So there is a review and discussion period prior to actually final adoption of the report and ready for presentation. So that'll be a big component of what we're looking at to make sure it's the right mix for what we need in Cochrane.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that when we hire a consultant, they're not just regurgitating what you think we need and they're telling us that.
That's correct.
It's what they think we need with the information you're inputting.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We're good?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief. I had a couple of questions of my own in addition to those that my colleagues have asked, which I think are really thorough. It was interesting under the guiding principles that you used the term sustainable recommendation under innovation as opposed to under manageable. I've never put the terms sustainability and innovation together, but that's kind of intriguing as to where it'll go. And so to the mayor's point, I was curious as to like what other innovative solutions there might be beyond just the traditional services that we see. So I'm really glad you're looking at that. And to the other point about, I think Councillor McFadden was kind of getting on this vein, and that is beyond the short term, medium and long term, do you think there'll be a phased approach in terms of financially phased approach in terms of being able to move this forward?
To the chair, yes, I believe they will. I actually have an expanded slide here on the requirements for fire service location and functionality. So in one of the bullet points that TSI has been asked to look at is the model will need to address station location by looking at a 5, 10, and a 20-year outlook, not just within the 10 years, because bricks and mortar is certainly more. It's important to look at that longer outlay. I think my view is now that the growth management study has pinned a 25-year outlook. We'll be driving our consultant to look at that timeline instead of the 20, it's to the 25. We are also, for staffing and training of personnel is the 5 and 10 years, and facilities and equipment requirements were again the 5 and 10-year outlook. So I think where we're certainly working towards is understanding at least what our 10 years looks like, and then developing plans around what's outside that 10-year timeline.
Perfect. I just had one follow-up question then. Councillor Federico was picking up on it. And then, so this report, I think, it looks like from your Gantt chart, is going to be due sometime around the end of August or middle of August?
No, it's actually sooner than that. It's ready for council, I believe it's in the end of July.
Okay, perfect.
June is the working towards the final document, and July is estimated where the final draft will be submitted and thereafter presented to council for consideration.
Great. This question for Lisa, or Mrs. Almond. Will this dovetail into our budget process?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, can you repeat the question?
I'm just curious, the final report, which will
Yeah.
have some financial implications in next year's budget, will it dovetail into the budget process in terms of next year?
Absolutely. Ms. Lowe will be working with the chiefs and myself on workforce planning, et cetera, on that side of it.
Right.
For sure before budget process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other questions? I don't see any. It was a great presentation, again, timely and much appreciated. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then to the Cochrane Business Incubator update. Mr. Mike Corman, the Interim Director of Planning and Development Services. I guess he's going to get an introduction.
Deputy Mayor and Reid and members of council, just happy to give this presentation this evening. Really wanted to first let you know that we all appreciate all the feedback that we received on February 6th. We have answers to all the questions that you provided. We feel that we are ready to proceed with this important initiative. And our intent this evening is to go through the input that you provided us on the 6th, answer those various questions. There are details within the report, however, I wanted to outline it within the presentation. And then our intent would be to be back before you next Monday night, looking for a resolution so we can get this incubator started and the important initiative within our community. We've made a number of important connections. We're going to talk about an innovation ecosystem in this presentation and really give you a better idea of the solid foundation that we've got to build from here. I would like to highlight that this will be an evolutionary process. Once we get started, we're going to get bigger and better as this moves forward. But really, the important part about this is that the station is going to be our main business focal point. It is going to be where there is connection and collisions between business. So that's really the vision that I want you to think about as we go through this presentation, and we'll proceed from here. But as I said, the agenda for this evening is a summary of the changes that we've added to the plan, update council on the grant funding opportunities, which we think are really important, and that's based on our important partnerships that we have with groups like Innovate Cochrane, and then outline the next steps in the process. So one of the first things Mr. Corman did is he looked at the space, 2,000 square feet. Really, if you can see in the picture here, very similar to Velocity. We actually taped out and looked at areas where we could fit different businesses in there. So we figure that we can fit in 7 startups with 4 employees. We really expect 3 to 4 groups to be part of the initial group that's going to be in there. And that still includes room for the breakout rooms that were proposed as well as the kitchen area. So that just provides a little bit of perspective on the space itself. But really what we wanted to get into is some of the additional details. So shared partner space in the middle, many of you have seen this. We do have room for our important partners in this, being the Cochrane Chamber, Innovate Cochrane, Cochrane Tourism, and Community Futures West. We don't anticipate that they're going to be in this space all the time. However, it is a landing spot where they can come in and participate in some of those connection and collisions that I referenced earlier. After hours access, Councillor Nagel, thank you very much for your input on February 6th. We have actually made a number of changes that will allow key fob access, so there could be 24/7 access through the membership agreement, which will limit any of the risk. So the various people within the incubator can go there and work all evening if they wish. With the boardrooms as well, we have an opportunity where there's an access code and automated alarm setting. So when people go in, if they have meeting at 7 o'clock, they're leaving at 9 o'clock, we can get the alarm set up afterwards. So again, this is going to be a busy space. There is going to be business at all hours occurring in this space, and that's something that we're particularly excited about. In terms of how do we get the various businesses in here, again, it's outlined in the report, but there is a entry criteria. We're going to evaluate how they're participating in the program. This is not just free office space for people to use. They need to participate in the programming, the mentoring, and things of that nature. There's obviously an application process with a form, founder interviews, a membership agreement which allows for that all access to the facility, graduation and alumni opportunities, and a very clear exit criterion procedure as we move forward. So we've outlined all of that as well. One thing, and Mr. Corman has been instrumental in this, working with the library across the street and some of the programming that they wish to do, which is really related to training and business, is they would have access to utilize the boardrooms and really focused on technology and business programming. So we feel that that's a strategic opportunity for us to pursue. Then council had questions related to community boardroom rental. Again, this is focused on business use primarily. So for those nonprofit groups, it's free of charge. However, if private businesses wish to come, it's $45 an hour, consistent with other facilities that we operate. If you've been in the station and there are 2 boardrooms, if they want both boardrooms, that would be $90 per hour. One of the other recent developments is the Regional Innovation Ecosystems grant funding opportunity. So we've been working with Prairies Can, Innovate Cochrane to identify some different opportunities. So there's matching grant opportunities that we can pursue. So there would be $20,000 for incubator programming. So we could get a matching grant. So that's up to $40,000 to help us assist us. We already established relationships with Platform Calgary and their executive director, so we can utilize these resources. And then there's a $50,000 from the Economic Development Operations Reserves for a contract position. Again, that would provide a matching $50,000 from Prairies Can, which would provide some additional support within the incubator for operations, even those extended hours beyond the hours when the normal business hours of the town itself. Now here's what I wanted to share in terms of the innovation ecosystem, really what we're trying to establish. You have obviously the government being the town of Cochrane. We have a number of non-governmental organizations that are key strategic partners, being Innovate Cochrane, Community Futures West, our other partners. We have industry within town. We have Garmin, Four Eyes, a number of different connections. We've got Platform Calgary as a non-governmental organization. And then what we need to do in the future is establish these other connections to make this ecosystem function. And that is connections with the different universities and colleges, as well as the investment and funding that is really going to drive the success of this innovation ecosystem. Again, as I started in the beginning of the presentation, I said this is an evolutionary process. We have the foundation from which to begin. We anticipate as we move forward that we will start building this as we move forward. But I felt that this was an important item to highlight. And as we get closer to, or I get closer to concluding the presentation, I think it also speaks to delivering upon 2 key objectives. The first being one of the foundational portions for administration, which is intentional relationships. Innovate Cochrane has been instrumental in assisting us, but also council's overall objective, and we feel we're in place to proceed with this, which is to create a vibrant economy in Cochrane and start having businesses within this space growing and then moving out into our community. Tonight, we're looking for your support for the operational plan and grant funding. Of course, we'll come back for a formal resolution next week, but that does conclude my presentation. Mr. Corman, he's here with, to help me if there's any details to some of your questions, but we would look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just for those watching from home, or particularly Jeff's parents, that was Mr. Drew Hyman who was speaking to us. And his colleague, I introduced him, his colleague, he's here for backup. Having said that, Councillor Federico.
Thank you for the excellent report. You know, I really don't have any questions. I just wanted to say big kudos for really kind of honing in on some of council's suggestions the last time that we chatted, including, you know, the access, you know, making it accessible for nonprofit groups, the grant opportunities that you're bringing forward. I think just definite wins, as well as being able to provide, you know, some space for our community partners. Honestly, I think you guys have really brought a lot together in between the two presentations. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. I think it's appreciated on my end.
Well, as I started, just like to thank council for the input. It is a collaborative effort with your input, and certainly we feel we're in a position to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Nagel.
Thank you very much for bringing this back. I really appreciate that you guys took council feedback and then came right back and improved things. Sincerely appreciate it. Questions I have, have we started thinking about how we're going to put together a mentorship program for the incubation station?
Well, mentorship is a key component of this, and that's where, again, working with our partners, we'll definitely develop that as we move forward, and that speaks to the evolutionary process. We really want to get some of the initial companies within here, and then we will build upon that.
So if we have anybody who we think might be interested in mentoring, or if people watching might be interested in mentoring, is there going to come a date where you'll be seeking applications for businesses and professionals who'd like to mentor entrepreneurs?
Definitely. That is something that I think is really important. And even in, I had an opportunity to attend one of Innovate Cochrane's recent discussions. They had Hunterwood Technologies presenting to the community, and got to meet a number of different people, and that's part of this ecosystem. So I think the mentorship opportunities, that's what's going to create a solid ecosystem within our community, and we're very well positioned for it.
Yeah, I don't want to speak too out of turn, but I might know a lawyer I can wrangle into giving a bunch of free legal advice to start up businesses, which can be worth a lot of money, actually. So, and then the second piece is just with recruitment of businesses. Are we going to put together a really robust plan to get the word out in the Calgary area about this?
We would be absolutely, we're going to work with our communications team and get the word out, and we're excited to get the first groups in there and generate a lot of interest.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Flowers.
I too wanted to say thank you for listening to the feedback, although I don't believe that Councillor Nagel should get all the credit for it.
No, of course.
He was mentioned. So I just was curious about the policies and procedures. Are they already in place in the paperwork, and have you shown it to people to get input and make sure it's not too much red tape?
We have a detailed operational plan. We've actually shared that and got some input from Innovate Cochrane. Mr. Corman's been working with them. It is a robust but not overly bureaucratic by any means. We do want to get this in place, operational. And again, as I said, we will continue to evolve to make sure that this runs smoothly and really generates businesses. The vibrant economy is really our focus.
So do you have a date in mind that you're hoping to accept applications?
We really want to get council's approval as the first step, but we would want to have an opportunity to get this operational certainly by the summer, and then be reporting back, very similar to land use bylaw or any of the other projects, and have an opportunity to provide you with regular updates on our progress.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think, share in the kudos. This really seems to be the right step. You guys definitely made a lot of adaptations, and this really feels to me now that it's community focused, and really is a great way to kind of unleash the innovation that exists in the group. Councillor Flowers had asked the question, it's like, when are we expecting kind of a formal launch? But what I'm hearing is June, summerish. you were more vague than that.
No, I think the important date here is coming next week when we would get the resolution of council to proceed, and we would be, that will be Mr. Corman's primary focus to begin getting that, or working with communications and getting those first businesses and ideas into our space.
Okay, and then, yeah, and then that was my final question, just to confirm that Mr. Corman is the project lead on this, and
Yes, that is
all the
correct.
great questions I get did come to Mr. Corman's way?
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Jadon?
Yeah, thank you. Echo what's been said around the table tonight. I think we're making great progress. I understand program would be approval, launch, monitor, tweak, monitor, evolve, grow, just carry on with the progress. One devil's advocate comment I will make is, and this is not a criticism of any of the shared partners that you've listed. I have heard feedback in the community about, well, how does somebody get appointed to be a partner in the group and get a desk or whatever that might look like? I think we might want to take a look at how the criteria has evolved around what a partner is defined as to be able to have access to the building.
Okay.
And if you haven't already. So there might be other partners that exist that may offer or bring, some positive outcomes to incubator businesses. How do they make the list?
Mayor Jang, we will look into that. Certainly the ones that were listed are the ones that we've been in regular contact with. It's really landing spaces. I don't want it to be thought of as dedicated space for those groups. It's part of those connection and collision spaces. So maybe they're coming in and working for a period throughout the day, but then they have a meeting within the boardroom. Again, primarily the boardroom is going to be for the incubator. However, we're looking with this access that the boardrooms will be used, and there'll be people throughout the day and the evening in those spaces.
Yeah, well, it may only be just being clear with what that is, so that people don't perceive it to be an office or that's really the criticism that I have, is that, and maybe it's not a criticism, it's just pointing out something that I hear from the public. Some people are, well, how do I get on the special list? There isn't a special list. It's maybe that's the answer, but I think we just have to be really overt with that messaging.
We'll be.
Sorry, if I may. Economic development works with these partners all the time, and so they are mostly the business focused. But if anybody wants to come and have a conversation about where they can add value as a partner to economic development and the incubator, we're more than willing to have that conversation.
Yeah, I know that you are. I just think we'd have to be open with that to the public. Yeah.
We'll be very intentional about that.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This is great. A lot of the things that we identified not so long ago were brought back and put into here. I appreciate the after hours access. That's wonderful. We could work that out that fast. I had a few questions regarding, so the first one, talking about matching grant opportunities. It sounded like these are private grants that we're looking to achieve for the operational funds, or?
I'm actually going to allow Mr. Corman, he's been working with Prairies Can and with Innovate Cochrane, and he can speak to those.
There are grants available through Prairies Can, which is a federal government grant. The $20,000 is allocated in the Economic Development 2023 operational plan, so we'd like to leverage that and match and have the Prairies Can grant match that. And then we're asking for council's approval next week, hopefully, to take money out of reserves to help with a contract person to help with the programming of the incubator and all that goes along with the massive effort that it will take to keep the incubator going.
Thank you. And with a non-critical lens, because it sounds like very reasonable amounts, is the $50,000 likely to be an annual operating ask, even if the grant funding is received? Or is it likely to be more than that, or too early
I think
to
we
tell?
need to reevaluate year after year through the budget process what's required to run the station as a whole and the incubator. And we will see, as success grows, the need for more resources. So we could continue to contract that out, or we could continue, or we could look at operationalizing it. There's lots of options.
Okay, thanks. And then I had two specific questions that may be too early, but it'd be interesting to hear later on as we come back to council, regular council. Perhaps the definition of business purposes for the free use of the boardrooms by not-for-profits. It'd be interesting to hear a little bit more of a definition of what that is. I feel like there might be some gray area there, but we're very early, I understand. And then I was also wondering about opportunities for the main visitor lobby center rental after hours. We talked about that in initial startup periods, but are we anywhere near that, or is that likely to ever be a possibility to rent the visitor center area that we see right now in the photo for?
I think it's absolutely possible. I think
Okay.
given the fact that we have the key code access and that we can funnel people through and utilize the space, I think it's important to be able to do that for sure.
Wonderful. Okay. And on that one, I've always, at least personally, imagined this building with the great green space that's associated with it to be something of I hope it to become a community gathering space where events are held, what have you. Obviously, the main benefit of having the building there right next to it is washroom access, which is something we don't have other places in town necessarily. Are the washrooms, they're not currently available after hours, of course. What are the summertime hours looking to be? And just for groups that are planning some sort of a outdoor event, when that becomes possible in the green space, what does washroom access look like?
Well, certainly we're open Monday to Sunday, 8:30 to 4:30. If an event is happening that's significant, we will work with community services and Natalie German in the event area and find a way to make certain events have washrooms if needed.
Thank you. Great presentation, and I really like everywhere we're going with this. It's came a long way since February 4th, was it, that I heard?
Yeah.
Thank you for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions and just wanted to add to the chorus of acknowledgements in terms of where we were and where we're going. The financial question Councillor Wilson asked, I had two others. So one was Drew used the term, or Mr. Hyman used the term evolving, which I think is really appropriate because there's a limited resource that I think is going to have an incredible demand, and there'll be competing demands for that. I think watching how this evolves will be really critical in terms of being able to go forward. I think the demand versus the actual resource is going to be way higher than what you have space for. And then the other question I had, or that was a comment, the question I had was, have we had anybody, I think I've asked it before, but have we had anybody approach us yet about the potential opportunity of being in the incubator?
I had a meeting today with somebody who has a software development opportunity. They'd like to look at that, so they're looking forward to the application process being available. And I've had 2 or 3 other conversations about, people who are looking to ideate a business, so.
Excellent. Again, thank you for your, sorry.
That's without necessarily working with our communications and openly advertising. So that is just simply word of mouth and knowledge of the facility. So I think we're confident that as we move forward, we'll get more interest.
Great. Yeah, I was just going to say this really plays into the kind of vision I think council has in terms of this particular building and moving forward. So thank you for your efforts and time tonight. Okay, we'll move on then to senior management position review. This is Lisa Amon, who is the Director of Corporate Strategy and Culture.
Do you want me to do it? Okay. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Reid and council members. It's my pleasure tonight to provide a response to Councillor Wilson's notice of motion of January 23rd, requesting that administration bring forward a report with an overview of all senior management positions within Cochrane's current organizational chart. As I explain our current context, I think it is appropriate to just take a minute and provide some historical context just to provide an illustration of our journey to where we've got to now. But I won't spend too long on this. I just think it's an important contextual piece. In 2019, the Cochrane municipality was structured with 1 chief administrative officer, 1 Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, and 5 General Managers, so a total of 7 senior positions. At this point, I just want to mention as well that the term General Manager for us is the same as Executive Director. It's within the same salary band. So when I start talking about Executive Director, if you can remember, we were talking about senior managers here, and also general managers. It's an interchangeable term. At the beginning of 2020, the then CAO completed a restructuring, which left 1 Chief Administrative Officer reporting into Council and 4 general manager positions. It's our understanding that the concept behind that reorganization was that those positions were going to be rebuilt in a different way, but that CAO resigned from our organization, which takes us to 2021. In January of 2021, Mike Derricott was hired as our CAO, at which point he had 4 general manager positions supporting the entire municipality. I'm going to leave this up for a little minute here just so that you can see, and I'm going to spend more time explaining the actual departments that report in through these executive directors, because I think that's also where we need a little bit of explanation and understanding created at the council level. But this was the 2021 org chart. Okay, now we can move to current. So during the budget deliberations of 2022, administration put forward a phased approach to rebuilding our organization. We were stretched to capacity with strategic and proactive work just not possible due to staffing constraints. We were very much in a reactive mode. Council voted in favor of a phased approach to rebuilding our organization at a more accelerated pace to match the size of the organization, to match the size of the community that we are. Our new structure consists of our 1 CAO reporting into Mayor and Council, 3 executive directors, and 8 directors. There are 5 director positions filled currently. 2 are open for recruitment at the moment due to natural turnover, and 1 is due to be posted in Q2 of 2023. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just pausing on the slide to give a little bit more explanation, and I think it's Deputy Mayor Reid who always says put some color on the canvas. So myself as the Director of Organizational Strategy, I oversee human resources, corporate strategy, corporate communications and intergovernmental relations, and I report directly into the CAO. We have 3 executive directors. At the moment, for anybody that mentions that they see my name as actually an executive director right now, our corporate services executive director, Catherine Van Kampiemer, is on a leave, and I have been asked to step in and oversee her divisions as well. So just so that there's no confusion there. But she will be returning, and her position oversees 2 directors, which is a director of legislative services and admin services, and a director of finance and IT. So we have legislative services, Jaylene and her team, administrative services, assessment and taxation, financial services, and IT services. Under Mr. Hyman, who is the Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure Services, we have 3 directors there. I'll start with the middle one because it's an interim position right now. The Director of Planning and Development Services, Mr. Mike Corman, is in the current interim role. You will note that that position is currently posted, and the name that we have put it under is the Director of Community Growth. We have done some evaluation of that position, and what will fall in through that is business development, planning services, and safety codes, and that is currently an open competition. Director of Engineering and Asset Management Services, you've had the pleasure of meeting Pinky Dela Cruz, who oversees capital projects, civil land development services, and GIS, as well as corporate properties and fleet services. And then the 3rd director under Mr. Hyman is Shane Hubble, who is our Director of Operational Services, who oversees roads, water, and wastewater. You've seen some presentations from him recently, and waste and recycling. And then our final 3rd executive director is Ms. Stacey Lowe, who is the Protective and Community Services Executive Director. She oversees Mitchell Ham, who is the Director of Community Services. His portfolio is community connectivity, FCSS, which is our social supports division, parks and open spaces, and then the very long term of Ranch House Event Center, community events and culture. And then the final position of Director of Protective Services, which is the one that I mentioned would be posted Q2 of this year, would oversee fire services as well as municipal enforcement and RCMP and emergency management. I'll pause at that point to say that currently, I believe Ms. Lowe is our Director of Emergency Management, and our CAO Mike Derricott and Mr. Corman are Deputy Directors of Emergency Management. Okay, so that's our current story. A very important note about this current structure, when we were rebuilding the organization, we were deliberate and well thought out and intentional that the executive level and the director level will sustain us for the foreseeable future. So this is the structure that will see us through our growth over the foreseeable future at a senior level, because that's what the notice of motion was referring to as the senior level. Okay. When redesigning our organization, we did look at comparable organizations. It was one of the processes that we went through, looking at other municipalities, best practices, what happens. A municipality that we talk about a lot within council is Leduc. So I'm going to share a little bit of their organizational chart, just for some reference point. They are similar sized municipalities. This is the overarching structure. City manager would be what we term a CAO. They have a chief financial officer, city solicitor, and 4 general managers. Again, that would be our executive manager level. I'll go one step further because we're looking at the senior positions in this talk tonight. They have a city manager, a city solicitor, then the chief financial officer, those 3 general managers that I spoke to, and 11 directors. So similar organization, similar structure to us. I do have lots more organizational structure charts to show you, but I'm not going to spend our time reviewing other municipalities because Cochrane is unique, and although we do take into account best practices of other municipalities, we need to take into account our current context and the uniqueness of the beauty that is Cochrane. Okay. Systems versus issues. So when we were designing our current structure, we took a look at methodologies that are used to create organizational designs that are robust, resilient, based on factors that influence every level of the organization. One of the key drivers in design was establishing the difference between a level in the organization that deals with systems versus with issues. So an individual contributor, as you can see on here, is mainly dealing on a day-to-day basis with the issues that come with running a municipality. And when we look at the other end of the spectrum, council, CAO, executive director, very much in the systems realm. So what does that mean? What does systems mean? We're talking about processes and policies and bylaws, service level reviews, strategy, which is, we have a current strategic plan in place, partnership building, both internal and external, performance management, visioning, risk analysis, and then as you move over to the other side of the organization, we look at customer service, which in our realm, that's our community. We serve our community, so our ratepayers, direct correspondence with the ratepayers, risk mitigation, control, physical implementation and execution of your strategic plan, emergent tasks of completion, water pipes bursting, things happening on a day-to-day basis, system status feedback back through manager, director, executive director to get back into the system realms. Running a municipality, this can include anything from FCSS programming, our day-to-day facility needs, ensuring our water is of a high quality, etc. I'm going to click on the next slide because this beauty shows a little bit more detail in a different manner. So I've taken that systems thinking and put it into these bubbles here. And again, you can see it's the same thought process. We have council through to an individual contributor. every level of this organization plays a critical role in quality municipal services. From council kind of being at that governance level, the 95% sitting in the systems and kind of 5% sitting in the issues, to individual contributors who would mostly spend about 80% of their time based on issues, day-to-day issues, and 20% of evaluating systems and speaking to their coordinator managers about that. I thought I'd pause here and give you a realistic example, because sometimes that's the easiest way to explain these kinds of things. And I'm going to talk about dandelions in this one. So let's say a resident contacts council with a concern about the amount of dandelions in a park. You get a separate call from a different resident who's saying, I hate the weed mitigation strategies that you use, you're poisoning our planet or the dogs. So you've got these two views of I want less dandelions, I want less killing of dandelions. That would be very much in the issues realm. But as you can see from our chart here, we're saying council is at a 95% systems. This is clearly the land of issues. However, the answer to the resident would be based on a policy level. So the guiding document is a policy regarding weed management. For the manager working with the coordinator in this example that I've given you, they would be checking to see if we are following our policy. At the director-manager level, they would be talking about best practice and workforce planning, i.e., do we have enough staff to actually follow through with our service levels? They would then take recommendations to an executive director for service level changes, or perhaps even a staffing request. The executive director and director conversation would also encompass the topic of civic literacy. How are we communicating with our community on what our policy is on weed management? So that's just an example to try and show you the difference between what an individual contributor would be doing on a day-to-day basis and what council, CAO, executive director, and director would be doing on a day-to-day basis. I can literally find hundreds of examples that take us through the issues versus systems. But as the notice of motion was about a senior level, I'm going to move on to looking at our senior level positions in a little bit more detail. So extracting from that chart you just saw before you, this is an illustration of the CAO spending about 90% of their time on systems and 10% on issues, the executive director at 80-20, and the director at 70-30. This is obviously a guesstimate, doesn't go on a day-to-day basis, life doesn't happen like that. The CAO would be, their focus would be on a 10-year time frame. Council, of course, would be much more than that, 10 plus years. The CAO would be looking at external and intergovernmental stakeholder relationships, converting council strategic priorities to organizational priorities, and would be the executive decision maker while demonstrating culture and values. Then the executive director, there's those three that we have playing a super important role. They would be focusing on 5 to 10 years, external as well as internal systems builder, incorporating organizational priorities and business plans. I'll speak to those business plans again in a minute, and champion and demonstrate the organizational culture and values. The director level, which is our new level, they would focus on 3 to 5 years, external relations, community groups, developing relationships with those community groups, and as well as interdepartmental service delivery, so roads making sure they're speaking to parks, parks making sure they're speaking to water, etc. And they would be more focused on tactical system building. That would be the implementation of the organizational vision and business plans. And they, of course, would demonstrate and allow for time and space of the organizational culture and values. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, so I'm just going to take one sip so that I don't lose my voice. Okay, so rebuilding a resilient structure. When the new structure was first proposed, administration indicated an 18-month phased-in approach. We have accelerated that implementation because of the approval of the 2022 budget, and we're just over 12 months into that implementation with one position left to fill. The overarching deliverables for all sections within our municipality are listed here. The work of my position, the Director of Organizational Strategy, is to build out specific KPIs, so key performance indicators, for each section to demonstrate and measure success. As the measuring of the success that is difficult to do right now, because KPIs traditionally have about 12 indicators, which are lagging and historical. We're in the building phase yet, so we have nothing to compare to yet. But our plan is to provide a scorecard to the public as well as to council. And we're currently researching platforms during the 2023 budget. There was an approval for an expenditure on a platform that will collect data from all stakeholders, including the Cochrane community, employees, council, and other relevant stakeholders. But the overarching deliverables are listed here. I'm not going to read them through because they're just words on a screen. We're going to proactively risk management. I understand the notice of motion as being, tell us what you're doing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what we're doing. So again, please remember that positions like Pinky de la Cruz and Shane Hubble have been in their roles for about a year. Some of these other director positions are very new, from 9 months to 3 months to 5 months, and 2 are open. So we're definitely at the building stage. However, it's easy to see some of the gains we've received. In a future scorecard, what we can do is put dollar amounts to the gains that we've had against the salaries. And I can already see that we are far and away paying for the salaries in the gains that we've made in the 12 months that we've been doing this. Excuse me. So let's go through them. Within a very short time, I would say the new structure has already yielded the following gains. So there are 3 executive directors. I would hope council has noticed that they're engaging at a much deeper level with the CAO and council and all other stakeholders to be able to take that vision and actually talk to the right people at the right time about what your strategic visioning is. And I think that emails that are coming out from Ms. Lowe and Mr. Hyman are showing that they're trying to be they are being way more proactive. They have a little bit more time and space and capacity to give you the information that you need. The leveling up of the information being presented to council for your critical decision making. If there was just one point I'd like to highlight, it would be this one, that you have very important decisions to make. And the level of information that is brought to you is what makes those decisions quality and informed decisions. With this new layer of the director level, we have leveled up in the information that we're able to bring to you. The executive directors work very closely with the directors on bringing forward to you information that the community can understand and you can understand so that you can make those critical decisions. One of those things would be the water loss mitigation strategies that will literally save our taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, as well as preserve our water supply. And that would be something that Mr. Hubble presented on recently. Mitchell Ham, significant grant applications within the community services portfolio, which will yield significant funding, which again saves our taxpayers because that then doesn't come from the tax base, it comes from grant applications. Managing grants for anyone who's managed grants, applying for grants, finding grants, reporting on grants is very time intensive. When we just have 3 or 4 or 5, as we did in 2019, general managers overseeing huge portfolios, they didn't have the time to apply for those grants and manage them properly. There's been large steps forwards in proactive asset management. A municipality our size has millions of dollars worth of assets. Pinky de la Cruz and her team are doing some incredible work in being fiscally responsible and evaluating the assets that we do have and what we need to save for things like just maintenance of our current assets that we have in the organization. We definitely have moved from a reactive to a proactive state. Marked improvement in capital management, and that includes delivery, communication. This number always makes my head spin. $130 million worth of highway investment would be an example. We need the staff to be able to support projects like that. There's been significant gains in government advocacy work. The CRL would be an example of that. There's a brand new department, the development of a strategy department that will begin operationalizing the strategic plan. So when I mentioned earlier that we will start talking about those business plans, and we will start talking about that at strategic planning this week, we have Kevin Blanchette, who is working with each department to figure out what those KPIs look like and what we can come back and provide to our community and to council as a scorecard on those KPIs. Another gain in the new structure was a reorganization of the Human Resource Department to support the needs of this growing municipality. We were not set up in a way that was able to support our internal stakeholders. That took about 4 to 6 months, and I think we are definitely well on our way to seeing the fruits of that labor. And then, this is one of my passion projects, is significant cultural improvements with staff being supported differently and feeling valued and heard and having the time and space for their demands of their service delivery that comes with a municipality of our size. So, I will end by saying that municipalities are complex organizations. Building a resilient organization is an obligation that we hold to our taxpayers, who are entrusting us to provide the best municipal service in a consistent and reliable manner. Thank you. And I'm happy to take, all the lights went on, all the questions.
Thank you for that excellent, pleasant presentation. Councillor McFadden, did you want to start us off?
I would, thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to say, great presentation. Thank you so much. As you highlighted, we've certainly seen the capacity growth, and I do want to recognize that and to thank the team for that. That certainly is evident that we are seeing capacity growth in different areas, and a lot of the presentations that are coming to us are much more strategic in nature, which I certainly support. And so I did have 2 kind of areas of feedback for that, or 3, I guess. First of all is a picture says 1,000 words. And so just being able to compare the different org charts to see that it was, it was 7, and then it was crisis 4 or 3, and now it's, 8 as we revealed that capacity. So just to have those, the images is easier than 1,000-word papers. But then the other piece I wanted to go is on your systems chart on who was spending how much time being strategic and who was spending how much time being tactical. I do have a question on this one, in that council's focus is 10 plus years, but I think we need to maybe chat that out about, because you have to remember we're elected for 4 years, and that's our accountability, is we need to be delivering year 1, 2, 3, 4. And I as a councillor, and councillor more broadly, is held accountable on that 4th year. So I'm not doing my job, and the residents can't see that I'm doing my job if I'm only giving them deliverables 10 years out. And so in none of my campaign literature have I ever said, in 10 years you'll be happy with the things I do. I'm promising more immediate improvements than that. So I like where this is going overall, but I think we need to maybe hone in on it a little bit more. So I do agree with the overall point that, of course, council is strategic, looking at the big pictures, but you actually have to remember council's role is that 4-year accountability cycle.
Absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, I completely agree, and that's, I completely agree, and of course we could say that for the executive director, the director. I know I can actually feel the director's eyes going, oh, I wish I was spending 70% of my time at a systems level, and that I was thinking 3 to 5 years out. I'm just thinking about getting through this week. That's the ideal situation, and I think the way I would respond to that is as council, and I am definitely not a political analyst, but I think your systems building does support the issues during your four-year stint. So building those systems, you're looking at 10 years out on what those systems are going to look like. But I completely take the point that, you're also surviving on the day-to-day and the 4-year time frame.
Yeah, because we get measured off of the activities as well. Yeah. And so then the next point, and I agree, and you've identified moving to KPIs.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I mean, this is not an area of expertise at all, but some recent learnings that the risk of KPIs, if you set the wrong ones, you can set the organization down the wrong path. And so I'm not quite sure that KPIs is how we want to measure it. I do want to measure it as an improvement of service and to be able to communicate that clearly to our residents. So I'm glad we're looking to some sort of a metric, but I'm not sure that I'm quite comfortable on KPIs because my understanding is they can be risky if selected poorly, and bringing the entire organization into KPIs.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's my feedback on that. But yeah, my overall feedback is, thank you for this report, and for sure I've noticed the capacity increase of our organization, and I certainly appreciate it. It allows me to be more effective in my role.
Yeah.
But just remember, I need to look good in 4 years, not 10.
Thank you.
if-
Through the chair to Councillor McFarland, thank you for that feedback. And I agree, KPIs can get complex and then everybody just wants to meet their KPI. I just want to be clear that that scorecard, there will be full engagement with council and with our community on what they actually want to score us on. It won't be, executive team deciding what KPIs we're going to lead with. So there will definitely be an engagement process on that. Thank you.
If I may just add to that, Mr. Chair, I think the underlying, there's all kinds of loaded language, whether it's, KPIs or some call them CSFs, critical success factors, or whatever it is. I think the key underlying piece is, are we gathering data, and is that data helping us make decisions? And so I think that that's the underlying exercise that needs to be happening there. And I'm in complete agreement with you that we have to be very, very cautious about how we set that up and that it actually drives outcomes. I sometimes use the language of it. My observation is when that exercise is done poorly, it becomes that we are serving the KPIs rather than the KPIs serving us, and we don't want to set ourselves up to be chasing those outcomes versus using them as mechanisms that help us understand our ecosystem and to function properly within it. But just to reiterate, my core point there is collecting evidence and having that data influence our decisions is the kind of key underpinning of that exercise.
Good. Councilor Federico?
Thanks for the information. I think it's great for the community to be able to see this overall, because that's really who we're obviously accountable to sitting around this table. I do have a couple questions for you. When you talked about the growth of the executive leadership and director level, how much growth are you talking about? Like, are you saying that would suffice to like a population of equating to 50,000, 60,000? There might not even be a number, but I'm just wondering overall.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Federico, I purposely didn't put a number in there because, getting tied to it, I see this as very scalable. So the growth that will need to happen now and in the future to meet the growth of our community is at that more individual contributor level and from the manager level around that level. I am fully confident that we could sustain this model for the next 5 to 10 years. Depending how quickly we grow. I want to put that caveat on there because I don't know what the prediction of the growth is going to be, if we're accurate or not. Yeah.
Okay, I do appreciate that.
I'm sorry, if I can just also add to that, I think what we want to do is also just not, we want to have the organization designed to do the things that are our priorities, and so that's the other caveat I would put on that is changing service levels and changing priorities can have an impact on that, but it is not the intention to see much change or growth to the senior management team, as Ms. Allman said, for the foreseeable future. We feel quite comfortable that we'd be set up to move into the future with capacity.
Yeah, thanks. And that kind of leads to my next question, because obviously, council, as we went through the budget book this year, there were many sections of the book that have a director, but there's nobody underneath them. So when will council expect to see some of that kind of the growth under that director level? Because obviously we realize that a director needs help, they're going to need other people. And what does that, I guess, complete picture look like, or when will we start to see some of those positions come on board?
Yeah, so currently each director that is in place absolutely has portfolios under them. So they do have people reporting in under every single one of those director positions do. Any work that we do on workforce planning and things that are informing that workforce planning, like the fire master plan that you spoke to today and other plans, will help us inform our workforce planning, and that will come forward during budget deliberations. And actually during strategic planning, I'm actually planning on talking about workforce planning as well. So in as little as 2 days, we're going to talk about that as well. And I'm really happy to provide more detail of what positions we have underneath those directors. I have the overarching teams right now, but I can absolutely provide more detail on that if that is required. Where are we going? We're going to Yeah. So each director does have teams reporting in through them.
Perfect, and just a couple comments if I could. I do agree with you about the KPIs. The one thing that I would like to bring forward, and this might lead into my last comment about how council is more about the systems and the policy of what we're trying to set. If we're doing some sort of survey, we're wanting to find out not only how our staff are feeling, how residents are feeling with the service delivery. I'd really like to make sure that that is a confidential report and third-partied out so that we are not setting it up from an organization point of view to put it out and say, you know, we think we're doing great. Of course we do, but this isn't really, shouldn't be, we think we're doing great. Tell us how great we're doing. This really needs to be led in and fed in, I think, by residents, because I really want to hear, do they feel things have improved? And I think that that needs to be removed from a staffing perspective as far as I'm concerned. And I like to see it third-partied out and be confidential so that everybody has an opportunity to just speak their mind and be able to say what they need to say. And that leads into my last point, is that the one thing that with council is that, you know, we should be focused on the systems, but this is sometimes the challenge with being a counselor, is that, you know, you're right, go back to the Dandelion case. We're gonna hear about it probably in April, I'm sure. Our inboxes will fill up. All of a sudden we decide we should create policy about this. Sometimes I do feel like as a counselor then we say, okay, well, we should really create a bylaw, maybe change things, but then we have to bring a notice of motion. Notice of motion throws us off our strategic plan, and pretty soon we don't actually address something that we might want to see to change the system. And so I don't know what that looks like, but that's sometimes how I personally feel as a counselor, that I would like to bring something forward that could change the system, but I can't change the system because it then alters our strategic plan, which then that's not appreciated. So how do we make sure that if we do have those concerns, that they're being advocated for and that we do have that space to bring things forward, even if they're as minor as, let's look at different Dandelion alternatives. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. If I could just respond, Councillor Fedeko, to the clarity on the staffing. So when we created this specific structure now, it was to serve the community that we are now. So going to the community and asking, you know, we have had feedback in lots of areas around things like, I use dandelions because it's visible. You don't know what's happening with the pipes under the ground. You don't. We were so understaffed that we were stretched to capacity where something was going to go wrong. We now are at a position where, okay, we can handle what we have now. So it's very difficult to go ask the community to say, can you see the difference in your water flow? Do you know that this valve has been changed? You know, that kind of thing is very difficult. Poor Parks and Open Spaces gets a run because it's so visible, you can see it. Every other department, our 27 other departments, some of it you can't see. I take your point absolutely, and internally in May we do our staff engagement survey, and again I'll speak to civic literacy will be spoken about at strategic planning and what public engagement looks like and how do we get that response, more of this, less of that, please. So thank you for those comments.
Yeah, fair enough, and I understand your point that, yeah, somebody's not gonna know all the underlying background, but I think that's where if we're gonna look at a third party or some sort of company to conduct or consult with about, at the end of the day, we do have to know that we've increased tax dollars over the last couple of years. Like, at the end of the day, we have to know that what we've taken them for has done something in the public realm, right? And I don't know exactly what that is, because you're right, it might not be all the specific details, but I think it is important that we figure out a way, in whatever capacity, to find out and communicate that out to the public, and that they have a chance to be able to provide their input. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Lisa. That was excellent. As Councillor McFadden, I think, said with seeing the picture in front of us of the org chart is something I've been unclear of for quite a long time, as we've evolved and changed a lot during my time here. So very useful things there. Part of my notice of motion that generated this was to try to understand the return on investment from each director level position, which I know is an incredible homework assignment. That's something that's pretty hard to return, and I appreciate that we're going to be taking a KPI scorecard mechanism approach upcoming with it that should provide some of that detail I was hoping to get from a resident perspective. What are these director levels providing to the community? What value are they providing? When you went to this slide, I have seen it as a councillor on all of these points are totally correct. I've seen a step forward in our administration in the things we're able to achieve over the last 12 months or 18 months or whatever the lens was. So thank you for that. A few of the feedback things I have from the presentation, I guess I have some questions here. When we were talking about the level of senior managers from in the historical part, 2019, 2021, it sounded like we started with 7, went to 5, and then recently, I don't understand, I'm not clear, do we have 4 now or 12? I'm not sure about the math.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, we have 3 executive directors and we have 8 positions for directors. One of those is not filled yet. 7 of them have been filled, 2 are currently open for recruitment. So 8 and 3.
Okay, and from a compensation landscape, that would be about correct that we went that far down from once having 7 to now having 3 equivalents or 4 equivalents, is that right? It doesn't sound like it could be right, but.
I'm sorry, through the chair, can I just ask for clarity on what you're asking? We definitely did ask for more money, that we did ask for. Nope. So how it was structured before, that would be in 2019, to how it was in 2021, to how it is now, definitely cost more money, for sure. Are you wanting to know exactly how much?
No.
What
I was asking for is, when we say senior managers in quotes, so because the names have changed, that's what's causing me.
Got you.
Not being clear. So executive directors are what before were senior managers. Is that the equivalency, or that's all I'm asking?
So yes, it is the equivalency. So we do not have a deputy CAO anymore. So that money would have funded some director positions as well. And we do not have 5 general managers. If you use that language, we have 3 general managers. So we went from 5 to 3. So we lost a deputy CAO and 2 positions, which were used to build out the director level.
Excellent. Good enough. Thank you. Appreciate it. And then so my next question was generated from when we were looking at the org charts, particularly the Leduc example compared to us. Most of the directors, when we're going through them, it's fairly intuitive to me what value is being provided and or more than value, the necessity of it. The one that I'm a little bit more unclear of is the Director of Protective Services, probably because it hasn't been hired and it's something new to the organization. But when I look at the City of Leduc, I don't see where that even falls in with their org chart. So maybe just a compare and contrast with that if we could.
Councillor Wilson, they have a fire chief director, so that's how they have structured themselves under community and protective services there. Their fire chief is their director. There's lots of different permutations of that. For us, looking at this, that director of protective services doesn't just oversee fire. The proposal is overseeing municipal enforcement, RCMP, given the policing discussion right now, and emergency management, which is done off the side of people's desks right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Wilson, if I may just add to that, I think too, when we look at that portfolio, the core service deliveries that are held there, as well as the budgetary impacts, are significant. It's over 1/3 of our operational budget is housed just in that portfolio alone. And so hopefully if we achieve what we have in other areas where directors have come on board in terms of finding efficiencies and gains there, that will have a significant impact, not only on the quality of service, but also on the cost of those critical service pieces. And I think a little bit about too the open questions currently in the province around policing models and all that's going along with that, and how it takes significant time to understand, invest, and formulate a strategy and opinion on how Cochrane can best position themselves in that changing landscape. Those are the types of exercises that we can expect that director to support, which currently are a challenge without that capacity in place.
Excellent, thank you. That was the sort of answer I was looking for there, so I appreciate it. I guess if council agrees that's in particular one area, I'll be interested to see what KPIs we come forward with. I mean, I'm interested to see all of them, but in particular there, just because it seems less clear to me. But the fact that it encompasses that large of a portion of our operational budget definitely speaks to the necessity of having it properly managed, so thank you. And I think I had one more comment before I let go here. Well, perhaps I don't know. It was just about individual departments. So I guess where this leaves us, thank you for responding to my notice of motion. Look forward to what KPI sort of things come of this, hopefully in the near future, and that'll give us a better idea of more specific return on investment. But I think this was a valuable exercise. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Flowers?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It was very well thought out. I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to say that it's apparent to me that we can respond better to the growth problems now, and we have the time to do the grants, which I think is really important. The ability to plan more projects and carry them out. The advocacy with the province and all the other things that we're advocating for. I just think we have a better chance now of changing our systems if we need to change them than we've had in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers.
Mayor Jadon?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you, Councillor Wilson, for bringing forward your notice of motion. I'm glad we have really taken a deep dive into the details of these levels of our administration. And it really, I'm coming away even more confident than I was before that the structure in place is what we actually need to deliver the services that residents expect. And I'm going to get onto my soapbox a little bit, and it's not really directed at council administration. Obviously already knows this, and hopefully it's picked up in the community and residents start to resonate with this, that we obviously have a growing community. That's clear. We've all acknowledged that. I think the community is coming to terms with that in a better way. But along with those growth pressures comes demands, and those demands are, and people are demanding results. So we're tasked with, providing resources to deliver on those expectations. And I don't mean to pick on anyone by this comment, but as Ms. Van Kuympema, you mentioned, is away on a leave. An executive director of, and all of the executive director positions are obviously important, but here we are talking about our finances in particular. We are left with a gaping hole. And we're left to react again, as you said. We're trying to shift from reactive to proactive, and here we are with one of our main pillars of our organization that's away, and those things happen, and we need to be equipped to be able to backfill those and still handle the demands from the residents. So it's a good example of, gosh, and you've gone through a whole list, so I'm not going to repeat it all, but it just comes back to, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's our responsibility to provide this organization. And I believe that people actually assume that it's in place to do the work that people live their lives and just assume is happening in the background. Things like clean drinking water, waste and wastewater removed from homes, clean and safe streets to navigate, and sidewalks, and I mean we go on and on. Everybody understands all of these things. Police, fire, road maintenance. We have a major railway that's busy running through our community, and a number of pipelines. I get a number of questions from people about what's our emergency management plan. What are all of those expectations have dollar signs equipped and attached to them that I think people take for granted a lot of the time, and assumed we had an organization that was in place that could handle all of the load that comes with that. And we did, but with growth comes more responsibility. So the one thing I think I've taken away from this is that we need to do a better, we need to do a better job in communicating our issues when we have them, and then our successes to the community. I think it's why this has been such a hard pill to swallow for many, is that they just assumed that we were able to do that already, and we weren't, to your point. So I think if we get back to KPIs and return on investment, the investment that we've made in our organization is literally paying off already. And I listed a few things, and you had a couple of them in your report. Water loss mitigation. We've talked about the hundreds of thousands of dollars of water we may save, but the water license that we may save, I think, was over $5 million. The Pathway Grant, almost $800,000. The 1A22 advocacy for GAP 1 and 2 is $20+ million. Intermunicipal collaboration, we heard from last meeting, X million dollars that we are going to save. The CRL is $13 million. And a whole lot of question marks. So already $40+ million in a short period of time that we're seeing immediate results for. Those are the types of stories we need to start communicating to the residents that, and quite frankly, I think people will be shocked to hear them if they're listening, but that we also still have a long list of expectations. Big Hill Lodge, the next highway upgrade that we haven't even identified yet with Alberta Transportation, a water license application in with the Minister of Environment. All of these things take enormous resources. We need to communicate that to people more often and talk about when we do have problems, what they are and how we need to address them. And I think we haven't done a very good job of that. So that public engagement that we keep talking about, I know that's the solution, but I really wanted to go on a bit of a rant tonight about just that very thing. If somebody wants to look at their wallet only, and I know there's a whole lot more to it than just finances, but we can draw a direct line to $40+ million of capital improvements in our community over the last 2 years that we can go right to our organization capacity-wise. So thank you for all of your work on this. I really appreciate the outline. And perhaps as part of our budget process task force, that like these are the types of presentations I think we need to have more often.
Yeah.
And then do more work in the background to bring it to light in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Janone, for that rant. That was a good one. Councilor McFadden, we're back to you.
It does sound like Jeopardy like that. But yeah, following up on the mayor's point, in that, I mean, without finances as a strong foundation, all of our challenges and opportunities are an entirely different story. And Cochrane has been fortunate, I think, that we are in a very strong financial situation, but we're also seeing a great deal of pressures coming at us. And so, but without leadership in that space, we're challenged. And so following up on the mayor's very good point of we need to let the community know when we're facing challenges, how we're facing them, and then what the solution is. And so if possible, if you could speak to how we are backfilling and solving our financial leadership solution in the short term, because I'm sure everybody would feel much more comfortable to know that we've got a gap in our finances, but we've got a strong plan to backfill that. And if we could just share that publicly, I think it'd be a great step.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor McFadden. Currently, I am seconded in overseeing the people part of it, so I want to be very clear on that, on the people part of the two portfolios that are missing. And to the mayor's point, as you can see, if you look at any of the other portfolios, if Drew Hyman had to win the lottery and disappear tomorrow, he has people that would be able to step up, super quickly. We happen to be in this perfect storm situation where these two positions are open, so that just leaves this gaping hole. I do want to reassure council and the community, under the direction of Mr. Derricott here, he is doing a very good job of helping me navigate through all of this, and we are in the final stages of our hiring of the Director of Finance position, and we have some stellar candidates there. So we are super excited to get that person on board. I'm really hoping within the next 6 to 8 weeks that we will have that person on board, depending on what notice period they need to give. That plan is in place, and Mr. Derricott is looking, I'm sure he'll have something to add here, is looking for an additional support to help me within this portfolio. We have hired a temporary senior accountant who's helping with the tactical side of things, and he has been with us for about 6 weeks, I think, and is going to stay with us for another 3 months. So we do have additional resources, so we aren't in crisis. I'm just not sleeping very much. Does that sound Vic to me? Let me do that. Mr. Derricott, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. I think you outlined that very well. I'll just say, I think if Drew was saying you have to buy a ticket to have a chance to win, is that where you're at there, the lottery? But Yeah, thank you for the question. We absolutely do have an interim plan in place. I won't say more. I think Lisa laid that out there. But even with that plan in place that I think is solid, this does have an impact on processes and capacity. And so I don't want to play that as in we're not expecting the exact same outcomes out of that department over this period of time that we would, assuming that they were appropriately and fully resourced. And so the expectations are moderated as we go through this unexpected period. But I'm appreciative of not only Lisa, but the team as a whole leaning in and stepping up is what we've come to expect from our team, and we are getting that from the group. And hopefully, as Lisa said, more reinforcements will arrive shortly.
Excellent. No, I do appreciate that in this report as well, to get this overview of HR. And I know I've chatted it out before, and having seen the value of this, I'm kind of leaning into it more. And I know other municipalities do it, getting a kind of a scheduled quarterly update of the HR overall big picture, so that council and the community can really understand how we're addressing growth pressures when we hit these stumbling points, how we're addressing them. So I may work on that some more and have some further conversations about how we could make this part of our regular updates so that we're seeing it all the time. So, but I really appreciate this update. Councillor Wilson, thank you for bringing it forward, and it's great to get these big pictures. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I had a couple of questions and comments if I could. I thank my council colleagues for covering most of it. Councillor Fredeco asked the question about the structure. You said the structure will see us through the growth of the foreseeable future, and her question was about what is the foreseeable future, and I appreciate your answer to that. The question about the Director of Protective Services, and Mike, I really appreciated your response to that, was bang on. This all stems from the way Councillor Wilson framed this notice of motion, and I think it really positioned us. Not only did it frame it properly, but it positioned you in terms of being able to come forward with a great response. Your presentation, I thought, was very thoughtful. The caliber of it was excellent, and I would like to have access to the slides. I guess for me, the two comments I would want to kind of summarize with is the scorecard and the whatever we call it in terms of the KPIs. I mean, the gain slide that you show, the mayor referenced some of it and actually added to some of it. And the scorecard, I think, will be an incredible tool for council to take forward to the community or administration to take forward, but all of us to take forward in terms of being able to make community aware of just what we've done. But I think the most important thing for me out of this whole presentation just comes to the fact that this reaffirms council's decision, while it was unpopular in terms of the tax increase, to support administration's growth, given the community that we want and envision ourselves in living in. And so for me, that's the takeaway. It just reaffirms that we made the right decision. And as difficult as it was at the time and as painful it has been in terms of that transition, it does show the leadership council had. And with all due respect to members of our community, they may not be able to have seen that from where we were. And to the mayor's point, maybe we didn't do a good job of talking about what the issues really were. But again, I think this just reaffirms where we're going. And so on behalf of council, I think it's pretty unanimous that this was a great presentation. A lot of depth and thought. I love some of the slides that you used, just from a management perspective, aside from a councillor. And I look forward to being able to see more of it going forward. So thank you on behalf of council.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, may I just confirm, I think it's pretty clear, but with Councillor Wilson, that this satisfied the interest you had in the notice of motion. I just don't want to leave that question unanswered there. I'm seeing a support for that.
This councillor is totally satisfied and looking forward to what becomes of the KPI strategy work, but otherwise, yeah, thank you very much. I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're to the point of our agenda where I think we are going to move in camera. Sorry? Thank you. All in favor? I think we'll take a 5-minute, or Morgan, is it 3-minute break? 3 minutes, okay.